Okay, so here we are, Wednesday morning, July 8th. We're going to walk down towards the ski areas. So here is a log church. And you don't see too many log churches, I don't think. There are a fair number of log cabins or log houses in the area. In fact, there's something called the Log Village. It's about 2 kilometers from our house. And so this church has got some kind of a memorial hall. And you can see it looks like that traditional log construction, even with a little bit of flair, if you like, of the logs on the end there to give a little, what's the right word, a little bit more style. And you see how the pillars in front there have got the little spirals on them. Kind of interesting. You don't see too much of that kind of construction anymore. Anyway, Pippi and I are late today. Last night we had thunderstorms rolling through, and when Pippi hears the thunderstorms, she just gets so afraid. She jumped up on our bed 3 different times. We had sort of 3 waves of the thunder, and a couple of the cracks of lightning were really quite close. It reminded me of when we were hit by lightning. I guess it would have been about 2008, 4 or 5 years after we moved in, where the lightning came in through the telephone wire in underground and blew all my electronics. Remember, the insurance coverage at the time, it was about $5,000 for replacing the electronics. Anyway, so there were a few cracks last night. Bonjour. And, she shook the tree and raindrops are falling. So we had quite a good rain last night, which we needed. And I don't know what the forecast is today, other than it's 98% humidity and 22 degrees when I left the house, and it's 22 degrees in the village. So Pippi and I are going to have a hot day. Now, the other thing that's going on today is I'm going to go to the dentist for a filling. So they phoned me yesterday to remind me, and then they asked me if I had any symptoms of COVID, etc., 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 which they did when I went to the doctor as well. They did a phone screening, I guess they do. And so they told me 12:15 I'm supposed to be there, parked in my car, and they'll phone me. I'm supposed to wear a mask, and when they phone me, that's the time to go in. Presumably I'll be washing my hands and going into the room, and they'll do whatever they do with all of their new gear, or whatever the gear is. Now, this dentist we discovered maybe 8 or 9 years ago, when our last dentist prior to this one, she passed away from cancer. A very unfortunate, very nice lady that was a dentist, and she was so what's the right word? Sensitive to her patients, I remember, and she was such a nice lady. She would have been about late 40s at the time. That's got to be about 10 years ago, 8 or 9, 10 years ago, somewhere. In fact, she was interested in ordering a bed to be made for herself when she got sick. Anyway, so back to the story here. So this dentist that we have now is also excellent. And I don't know about what it's like for most folks. I know what my son thinks, that when you go to the dentist, they're trying to sell you this and sell you that. Particularly for me, I got a broken tooth that it's not really visible when I smile, and it doesn't bother me. And she said, well, I can put a crown on it, or blah, blah, blah. And I said, listen, it's not bothering me. If it bothers me, then I'll look after it. So she said, well, yeah, that's your choice. I'm here to work for you. And so that's been about 4 or 5 years that broken tooth has been there, not bothering me. But today, I'm going for a little filling, and it's my first filling in probably 4 or 5 years. So I'm curious to see how they're going to do this. Presumably they've got some different protocols in place to avoid contamination in both directions. So obviously I won't be able to wear a mask, and they'll be drilling, and you know how the little particles spray up. You can see them when you go out. I know they make me wear little plastic glasses to keep the particles out of my own eyes, but you know what I'm talking about. So it's going to be interesting to see that happen today. And there you go. So here we are coming down towards the mountains, and it's pleasant right now. You can feel the humidity though. Pleasant, 22 degrees, and going to be in the 30s if I recall the forecast. Yesterday I think Montreal didn't get to 35 as they planned. In Saint Sever, I think we were over 30. We didn't go for a second walk. Pippi, you want to go? Let's go this way. Pip, let's go this way. No, this way. So we're taking this walk because we're later in the day starting, and I figured there'd be more activity in the village. We're about an hour and 15 later than normal. And so to avoid meeting folks, mask or no mask, we're taking this route and see what's going on today. And I see, I had a very quick breakfast, which I don't usually do before the walk, and sat there to hear the news about what's going on in the U.S. You know, all of that spike, if they call it, and still the first wave, was avoidable. Avoidable with some kind of a concerted leadership, informed, intelligent leadership. And as far as I'm concerned, the blame for this mess now that the U.S. is in is entirely on Trump's shoulders. And because it was avoidable, I believe some of his, we'll call it actions, his inactions clearly, but some of his actions were deliberate. And when people die as a result of deliberate action or inaction, what's it called? I know what I'd call it. And I just, for the life of me, cannot believe that the U.S. has got itself in this kind of a extremely vulnerable position. The other thing that is kind of curious to me is, with the pandemic basically erupting uncontrollably now in so many places in the U.S., what does that mean from the point of view of the outlook for the economy? Bonjour. So it's an economic collapse of some kind that's coming, and yet the stock market is still, let's call it, strong. And I still have some money invested, mostly in gold shares, and a couple of in renewable energy, couple of bucks in renewable energy shares. And I'm thinking of selling the non-gold shares soon, because I believe there's going to be another significant drop in the market. The problem with the stock market is, if you're patient and play the long term, it's usually a moneymaker. How much depends. For me, I don't buy anything that doesn't have a dividend anymore. And if I had done that when I started, when I was about 25, I'd probably be a hell of a lot better off than I am today. Because if a company is paying dividends, you know that they've got a cash flow or an income stream that is fairly reliable, because you commit to the dividends, and very, very rarely do companies cut back or eliminate their dividends. And so it's a thing I didn't learn until really after the year 2000, the dot-com crash, which cost me quite a bit of money. But you learn, right? So look at, last night's rain. The river here is now a river instead of a little creek, and certainly is moving a lot faster than the last time Pippi and I were down here. Anyway, so there's an economic reckoning shaping up. Canada is not immune, and I believe that if things unfold the way they should as far as the election is concerned, the Democrats will get in and control the presidency, the Senate, and the Congress. And when that happens, good things should happen, especially if some of the Democrats that are really Republicans in disguise are not elected, and we get some of the progressives in there like AOC and Bernie and who knows who else. I can't remember all the names of the young folks that are coming up that are on the side with Medicare for all, etc. Pippi, come this way. Come. And so I kind of have to be optimistic that November should be a pivotal point in the U.S. And you know, I talk about the U.S., but the reason it's just so close to Canada, it's too close for comfort in some senses, and we got to avoid letting short-term, selfish, greedy thinking that is demonstrated particularly by conservatives become the modus operandi for Canada. We do have too much of the wealth and income inequality still. 1% of the population in Canada owns roughly 25% of the wealth. That is just not acceptable, not sustainable, and it's got to come to reconciliation. And when you think about all the money they've spent for this pandemic relief, which is the right thing, by the way, the money to fund ongoing, let's call it economic activity, has got to come from somewhere, and it's going to come from the places of excess. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. Anyway, I don't know how long I've been yakking here, but I have been. So, oh Christ, a long time, 12 minutes. Just a minute, Pip. We're going to go shut this down. I can feel the humidity, my God. Yeah, they must have the water slides open up today or for the weekend. You see they got some guidance for, I guess, whoever's coming in or out. There's some instructions under that little tent canopy thing there about washing your hands, etc. So the water parks must be opening up if they're not already open. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. Another gorgeous summer day coming. A little bit uncomfortable, I think, but we're going to enjoy. See? Okay, Pip. Okay, Pip.